Buenas noches, clase. Today we're going to talk about the differences between ser and estar, and we're going to begin to really examine how to use these two verbs correctly. Now we know that they both mean to be, which means they later conjugate to things like I am, you are, he or she is, we are, and they are. Literally translated, they mean the exact same thing. But we know so far that ser is more of our Sharpie verb. Remember that S for Sharpie and S for ser. It's more used for permanent characteristics. And eventually we're going to get to estar, which is our expo verb, or things that can be erased or things that are not permanent, that are temporary. And we remember that expo and estar both begin with an E. So now we're going to focus on ser. And if you weren't in class today, we started making this chart. We began with ser, but we're leaving room for estar over here. So today we're going to review the different uses of the verb ser. We're going to start with description and characteristic. This is probably the one that you're most familiar with because it's what we learn in Spanish 1. What we mean by that are things that you can't change about people physically or about their personality. For instance, soy muy alta. Alta being tall. I can't change the fact that I'm tall or maybe short or skinny or brunette or redheaded. These are things that we are born with that are permanent and we cannot erase. Another example would be este libro es aburrido. Aburrido, boring, being a description of the book. In our opinion, we can't change the fact that that book is boring, and so therefore we're going to use our permanent verb ser to describe that book. Other examples of descriptions, maybe a movie was long or maybe the class was short. Again, just simple descriptions of something, but facts that we cannot change. So that is description or characteristics. Now let's look at origin and nationality. This one is pretty straightforward. This talks about where we are from or what nationality we are. Obviously, you can only be from one place and you can be multiple nationalities, but you can't change either of those facts. You cannot change where you're from. You cannot change what nationality you are. And so therefore in Spanish, we use our permanent Sharpie marker to be to describe this. For instance, somos de Yakima. We are from Yakima. Can't change that, need to use our permanent verb. Mi amiga es colombiana. Same idea, we cannot change the fact, or our friend cannot change the fact that they are from Colombia. So therefore, we're going to use es, not está. Next up, we have date and time. This can be a little bit tricky for students because if you think about it, the date is always changing and so is time. But if we examine it a little more closely, I always use the example for time if you're sitting in class and would like it to be 2:26, the time that we get out of school, but it's not, we can't change that. We personally cannot change time, same with the date. I'm sure we would all love it to be Christmas break right now, but it's not. It's not something that we can change, and so therefore it is permanent, and we need to use ser to describe that. Son las 12 de la tarde, remembering that this is the format for telling time in Spanish. There are essentially 12 hours in the afternoon, or more simply, as we put it, it's 12 o'clock. But remember, we use son for the plural hours of the day, and we use es to tell the date. Es el 7 de diciembre. Remembering that because we cannot change these things, we have to use our Sharpie verb ser to describe them. Next up, we have religion. Again, this can be a little bit tricky, but if we change our perspective on it, we know that religion, especially in the Spanish culture, is taken very seriously. It's not something that you do necessarily, it's something that describes who you are to your very core. I don't think that no matter what you believe, that you would want your religion to be seen as temporary or erasable. No matter if you are Christian, Buddhist, Muslim, Mormon, or anything in between, it's something that describes who you are as a person and therefore cannot be erased. So in Spanish, we use our permanent verb to describe our religion. Mi familia y yo somos católicos. My family and I are Catholic. Or mi amiga es mormona. My friend is Mormon. Again, we could change our religion later in time, but the religion that we practice right now is who we are as a person, and we wouldn't want that to be temporary. We would want that to be permanent. So therefore, we use ser. Next up, we have possession. Again, this one can be a little tricky for students. We talk about things that are ours, or maybe in this case, that are somebody else's. Este coche no es mío, es de mi papá. This car is not mine, it's my dad's. Essentially, we're saying that this car belongs to my dad and we can't change that. Now, somebody might argue that you could steal it, but at the end of the day, it is still the person that originally possessed it. And you can't change that. We can't change ownership. We cannot change the original owner of anything, and so therefore it's considered permanent. Todas esas recetas son de mi abuela. All of these recipes are my grandma's. Again, remember that we use the de construction when we're talking about the apostrophe S, and we cannot change who the original owner is. Next up, we have material. Again, this is pretty straightforward. We cannot change something that maybe is of silk. Prefiero ropa que es de seda. And we can't change things that are maybe of leather, de cuero. Mis chaquetas favoritas son de cuero. Things can fade over time, but we can't physically change the material of something. And that goes along with color as well. We can't change that this shirt is yellow or my leather jacket is black. Those are things that are considered more permanent in the Spanish-speaking world. Next up, we have trabajo. This one tends to throw students for a little bit of a loop because we change jobs very easily and very quickly in the United States, or some people tend to. But again, along with religion, we wouldn't want people to think of their job as something that is temporary. Hopefully, it is a passion of yours, and hopefully it describes who you are as a person. And that's why many people, when they first meet somebody, asks, what do you do? And you would answer, soy una profesora de español, if you were Miss Weiss. I am a Spanish teacher. It's who you are as a person, not just something you do. Again, very similar to religion. We think of that as a description of ourselves, something that we would not want to be temporary. And as a boss someday in the future, you probably don't want to hire an employee that thinks of their job as temporary. You would want to hire someone that thinks of it more permanently, thinks of it as their passion and their duty to do. And that's how they think of it in the Spanish-speaking world. Todos de mis hermanos son mecánicos. All of my brothers are mechanics. Again, using soy and son to describe this permanent trait. One more, I believe, we have relationship. This one is pretty straightforward as well if we think about it again more from the Spanish perspective. For instance, maybe Johnny Depp and I are boyfriend-girlfriend. Johnny Depp y yo somos novios. Now, obviously, Johnny Depp could break up with me, but hopefully he doesn't think of me as a temporary girlfriend, and I don't think of him as a temporary boyfriend. In all seriousness, relationships are very special in the Spanish-speaking world. You would never want to temporarily be in a relationship with someone, or you wouldn't want to think of your family or friends as temporary. Relationships and people are very special in the Spanish-speaking world, and that's why we use ser, somos, and son in these examples to describe our relationships. In this next one, Jorge y Jose son primos. So that is what we did today in class. Please make sure that your ser side of the chart is complete, and we will go over lots more examples tomorrow. If you're stuck on any of these concepts, please feel free to shoot me an email. Buenas noches.